nominated member.
Thank you, Madam.
And whip for Jubilee Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, for Jubilee Party, just in case you didn't know. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just to let you know that the Speaker is also a member of Jubilee Party, so we are third largest party in this House. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I stand to support the Tax Procedures Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024. Madam Speaker, mine are going to be a few highlights here and there. First and foremost, Madam Speaker, to say I want to really commend the Treasury for reaching out to the public to find out what they really want from the payment of taxes. And I want to say that, Madam Speaker, if Kenyans committed in remitting taxes on time, at the end we might not even be able to add more taxes, and we can be able to survive with what we have. Madam Speaker, also when this bill addresses the shortcuts that people look for, and now there's clarity, there are clear guidelines on what to do, by what time, the issue of amnesty, the issue of penalties, the issue of the timelines. This is very important, Madam Speaker, so that the people who are either in business and they would want to seek for amnesty, or they would want even to write to the commissioner in case of many things that the colleagues have said, whether it's a holiday, whether it's somebody who is indisposed, and I'm in support of the Honorable Member who said sometimes somebody can fall sick. And in that case, Madam Speaker, then they are not able to remit their taxes. There should be a provision of that case, Madam Speaker. And I want to say taxes are not liked, and even in the Bible, I remember the tax collectors were not really loved, but it's also in the Bible that we are told you give to the Caesar what belongs to Caesar and to God what belongs to God. And so once we have clarity on how to pay the taxes, Madam Speaker, we will be able to collect more and not harass people. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, I also pray that whatever is paid or collected from the people, that it goes to the right use. I want to go to Section 5, Madam Speaker, where the Section 5 seeks to amend Section 42 of the Principal Act. And this is where it says a person who is required under this section to withhold tax and without reasonable cause fails to withhold the whole amount of the tax which should have been withheld, or fails to remit the amount of the withheld tax to the commissioner by the 5th working days after the deduction was made, shall be liable to penalty of 10% of the amount not withheld or remitted. So, Madam Speaker, we know there are some tax collectors who actually go and start harassing people and saying, if I give you, give me this, I may be able to give you this back. But when we have that clarity that is a percentage of 10%, then individuals will know, and the number of days are given by the 5th working day after the deduction was made. It is important that, Madam Speaker, that the people who are meant to remit, they remit the same. And there is also the issue about the refund of the overpaid tax, which is in Section Clause 6, which is amending Section 47, by saying for a refund of tax overpaid in case of an income tax within 5 years from the date on which the tax was overpaid, or in case of any other tax within 6 months from the date of which the tax was overpaid. Madam Speaker, the issue of electronic and reducing the human contact, because sometimes when there's a lot of human contact, we have seen not only in taxes, even in collection of the parking fee. Remember, Madam Speaker, the days that you would go park your car in town and somebody hides just to wait for you to look for him, and maybe you're in a hurry, you're going to an office, then they come back and clamp your car so that then you can be able to cough something out. So the issue of removal of human interaction with technology is commendable. And Madam Speaker, all that I hope is that also with technology, there are also loopholes that comes in. We hope then that they will also be able to secure that the tax money that is collected will not disappear. You know, also electronic has also its own challenges, Madam Speaker. The last one I want to comment about, which I really recommend, and this is very important for the taxpayers, is about the transaction for which a PIN is required, and why every Kenyan, especially who is of age, need a PIN. And it is important that people know, if you want to register a title, or stamping of instruments, you require a PIN. There's approval of development plans for anybody who wants to build, and payment of water deposit. You can imagine how many Kenyans pay water. It is important for Kenyans to know that the first schedule, it's giving clarity on transaction on which a PIN will be required. There's the issue of registration of a motor vehicle, transfer of motor vehicle and licensing of motor vehicles, registration of business names, registration of companies, and this also now addresses, Madam Speaker, I think 2 days or last week we had the issue of the startups, where we're also encouraging our young people to come up with startups, and we're coming up with how they can be able to be assisted. So it is important for even our young people to know that they require this PIN, so that as you register your business name, you will have a PIN, registration of companies, underwriting of insurances, trading license, importation of goods and custom clearing and forwarding, payment of deposits from power connections. It's very important, or contracts for the supply of goods and services to government ministries and public bodies. And remember, this house also provided for a specific percentage, that is 30%, to be given to our young people and the women in this country. Issues of opening account with financial institution, whether it's a bank or an investment bank, that you require to have a PIN, registration, and renewal of membership by professional bodies and licensing agencies. That means if you would want to register as an engineer and as a nurse, any professional body, that you require to have a PIN. Number 13 is interesting because it's registration of mobile cellular pay bill and till numbers by telecommunication operators, carrying out business over the internet or electronic network, and registration of a trust. So, Madam Speaker, we say lack of knowledge is what really makes people suffer. And so it is important that we provide this knowledge, and I'm commending Treasury for the same. And I hope once we become very clear, once we educate the public on the taxes and what is required on them, the public will have no issue once they know what is required and the timelines. So, Madam Speaker, I support the Tax Procedures Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024, and commend even the committee, the Treasury, and even this House for the commitment. And just to say, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of politics going on, but what is really happening in this House? A few weeks ago, yesterday we dealt with coffee, and these are the most important things that we have been sent by our representative to come and do this in this House. So I want even to commend my colleagues who are here this morning to make sure that we do what we were called to do for the nation. I thank you for the opportunity, and I support.
Thank you very much, Sabina Chege. The Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, member for Kitui Central.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in appreciating the work which has gone into preparation of this bill, all the way from Treasury and to our own Committee on Finance and Planning. Honorable Speaker, the bill we are discussing is what we call the Tax Procedures Bill Amendment. And this basically, what it tells,
did commit to Kenyans that laws report were tabled last evening around 5 o'clock, and I'm certain the Honorable Nyikal was not in the House at that time, so he may not have known, but I'm thankful that you are able to guide that those reports were tabled. And it's good also to remind members that these bills were published some time back, Honorable Speaker, and have been in the House. This bill has been in the House for the last month and a week. It was published on the 1st of November. So we had all the latitude to interact with the bill, and the committee only enriches what they have considered following public participation, and the reports are there. And indeed, Honorable Nyikal, if you have had the chance to go through the report and members, you'll be able to see that the public were very much in support of this bill, because this bill is addressing challenges or issues that were raised by members of the public. These bills were not just published by the National Treasury or the Leader of Majority. The bills came from a program where the National Treasury began with calling for views from members of the public on the tax regime in Kenya, how they would want to be taxed, how they would want to be treated by the Kenya Revenue Authority and other agencies that collect taxes, levies, and fees from them. And therefore, the National Treasury, in coming up with this bill, came from a very consultative process. And you remember when CS John Buddy was appointed as cabinet secretary, he did commit to Kenyans that he would indeed work very hard to change the manner in which the National Treasury interacts with Kenyans. And I think at the end of August or beginning of September, the National Treasury did call for views from Kenyans. Many Kenyans submitted their views, and those views are contained in these 3 bills published from the Blues. It is from the views of the public. Therefore, even before we went back to the public as a National Assembly, because constitutionally we must carry out our public participation, the National Treasury had gone to the people, gotten their views, collated their views into the 3 bills: the Tax Procedures Amendment Bill, the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, and the Business Laws Amendment Bill, Business Laws Amendment Bill of 2024, whose reports were also tabled yesterday. And following the extensive public participation carried out across at least 6 counties in the country, and lastly, here in Nairobi at KICC by the Finance and National Planning Committee, then the reports were tabled yesterday, and members are at liberty to interact. Honorable Speaker, when I speak about these bills being about the people, you remember last year, Honorable Speaker, we were able to lose a number of provisions in the finance bill. Sorry, not last year, earlier this year in June. And top among those provisions that got lost with the finance bill were very good and progressive proposals that were helping Kenyans as they settle their tax liabilities. Honorable Speaker, the mover of the bill has gone into great length to speak to some of these issues, from the tax invoice and the requirements of the tax invoice to e-teams, and even exempting our small-scale farmers or small-scale traders from the issue of e-teams. And these are some of the things that now will be able to benefit the Kenyan people, that unlike the situation before where every other small-scale farmer, small-scale trader was required to be on the e-team system, now it gives you a threshold of the 1 million shillings that the mover of the bill has alluded to, and I don't need to repeat that, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, more importantly for me is the question of tax amnesty. You remember, Honorable Speaker, we had a tax amnesty that was expiring on the 30th of June this year. And many Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, because of the difficulties of liquidity in the country, exchequer not always being available for either the national government ministries and state departments or even for our county governments, millions of our business people are owed money by government and government agencies. And I say millions, Honorable Speaker, of our people, from small-scale traders to very big contractors. But all these people, Honorable Speaker, because they have invoiced government, they have invoiced for VAT, they are required by the 20th of the following month to settle their VAT liabilities. When they don't settle, Honorable Speaker, they are penalized. And interest is levied on the amounts that remain unpaid, for instance, on VAT. Some of them, their financial years end in June, some in April, some in September. And they are required to pay income tax. But they have no money because their bills are yet to be settled. Some are in the pending bills committee that the former Auditor General Uko was working on. Some have not been cleared yet by the pending bills committee. Some have been cleared, but they are yet to be settled. Yet KRA continues to accrue taxes, tax interest, and tax penalties on these business people, Honorable Speaker. It is these people, Honorable Speaker, that we must think about today as we pass this bill. Because this bill now is giving them another period of 1 year from 30th of June 2024 to 30th of June 2025. That as government agencies, as government, national government, as a county government settle their bills, then they will be able to settle their principal tax arrears or tax liabilities without having to accrue either penalties or interest. Honorable Speaker, you may imagine that is a penalty of maybe 10% or interest of maybe 2% per month. But there are people who I know, Honorable Speaker, contractors in this country, who owe Kenya Revenue Authority hundreds of millions in terms of penalties and hundreds of millions in terms of tax interest. And therefore, with this tax amnesty, Honorable Speaker, they will be able now to have that penalty and interest waived, and they settle the principal tax that they owe. And Honorable Speaker, when you engage taxpayers, and that is the spirit, the new spirit with KRA and the National Treasury, an engagement with taxpayers, they settle their tax obligations. When you offer a taxpayer an opportunity to waive his or her penalty and interest for them to pay the principal tax, they get encouraged to pay. And therefore, it becomes a win-win situation, both for the taxpayer who makes a saving, and also for KRA that enters into payment agreements with the taxpayers that let us waive your interest and penalty, and you pay our principal over probably another period of 6 months, and you do away with your tax liabilities. And with that, Honorable Speaker, the taxpayer or the government is also benefiting. It's not just the business people. Let it not be seen like we are doing an amendment to benefit just business people. Even government is benefiting, because in these agreements with taxpayers on waiving their penalties and interest, government also collects the tax liability earlier than they would have. Because what happens in most cases, Honorable Speaker, you will find all these business people end up going either to court or to the tax tribunals and get into a protracted battle with KRA over the settlement of those penalties and tax arrears, Honorable Speaker. But when we encourage them to pay their principal tax, they pay in time, government collects more revenue, we're able to offer more services and better services to the people of Kenya, and the business owners, Honorable Speaker, are able to get their tax, part of their penalties and interest waived, and with that they have more liquidity to put into their businesses, and therefore grow their businesses, create more employment, and eventually also end up paying more taxes, since they're turning over more money than they would have, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, of course, there are also other procedural issues that the mover has alluded to, and I don't need to repeat all of them, especially on people who collect or withhold tax and fail to remit that tax. And the penalty that the mover has alluded to of 10% for people who deliberately do not remit taxes, Honorable Speaker, within the specified times in statute. Because this, Honorable Speaker, has been a big problem. People withhold taxes, be it VAT or withholding tax. They know the timelines, but you choose to trade with government money. And even the Holy Bible tells us, Honorable Speaker, that give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. And since all these business people and us go to church on Sundays and we give to God what belongs to God, it's only fair that then also when you withhold taxes that belong to the taxman, then you remit those taxes to the taxman within the specified period of time. And a person who fails to submit that then will incur a penalty for that late submission of tax. Of course, Honorable Speaker, the mover has also spoken to the issues that we need transactions that require PIN numbers. And it's important, Honorable Speaker, because again, we are finding situations where people are buying cars. People are transacting in land and transferring land, but without PIN numbers, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, if I am able to buy a car, it means I have an income. And the personal identification number for tax purposes then should be a major prerequisite. If I am buying land, Honorable Speaker, or paying for insurance premiums, you cannot be paying for insurance premiums if you do not have a source of income. And therefore, it's one of the ways, Honorable Speaker, in enhancing some of these things to ensure that every other person who is earning an income within Kenya and outside Kenya and is a Kenyan is paying taxes, so that we continue to encourage a tax policy or a tax position, Honorable Speaker, where each and every one of us who earns an income pays our fair tax burden, so that we fairly share our tax burden and not overload some, as the case has been in the past, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I do believe, Honorable Speaker, with the enactment of this bill, it's a very short bill, Honorable Speaker, only about 10 clauses, and Honorable Speaker, it is a very progressive bill that will help not just the Kenya Revenue Authority, but more importantly, our business people and taxpayers. And that is why it speaks to procedures, tax procedures, because I know there are those who may want the world to believe that we are debating taxation, and probably we are not very many in the House, Honorable Speaker. Even in the US Congress, even in the UK Parliament, some of these things are not discussed by a full plenary, Honorable Speaker. It is those people like Honorable Nyikal who are keen on legislating, who are usually in the House. And you know, Honorable Nyikal is always in the House. And I was just sharing with him here and telling him, you know, some of these are a little bit complex issues to do with finance, economics. There's not very many members who are keen on them. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, these bills are not just debated in plenary. The committees that have considered all these bills, the Committee on Public Finance, on Finance and National Planning, has membership that has considered that. Honorable Speaker, I've seen other committees, especially on the business laws, the Committee on Trade, and the Vice Chair, Honorable Mariani is here, she can attest to it, that the number of members of this House who have interacted with these bills are immense. Therefore, the fact that at the rise of the House, Honorable Speaker, you are about 80 of you in a House of 349 doesn't mean members have not interacted with these bills. Members have. And Honorable Nyikal knows, because I have interacted with Honorable Nyikal at the tea place, at the members' lounge. Members carry out even more detailed debate on bills outside this chamber than inside this chamber. A fact of life. Because I was in a very animated engagement just before I came in with members at the members' lounge having tea. And many who may have misconstrued what this is contained in this bill, Honorable Speaker, got to understand from that engagement. And I was impressed that members have taken their time, taken keen interest. And I do urge those of us who are here to support this bill. It's not a very detailed bill, only 10 clauses. And that is why there is nothing much more to add, Honorable Speaker. So that, Honorable Speaker, as without anticipating debate, Honorable Speaker, the next bill on business laws is also very critical and crucial for us, and in a way interrelated, because these business laws are also speaking to how we help businesses to grow, how we encourage businesses to invest in this country, how we make the running of business in this country more efficient, and investors who want to come and invest in our country. Can I? Second, investors who want to come to invest in our country to have a conducive environment through the business laws that we'll be following, Honorable Speaker, and therefore urge that we support this bill, as I second and urge all of you to support it, and we move on to the other bills. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I second.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Honorable members, I now propose the question that Tax Procedures Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2024 be read a second time. The Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi, member for Buri. Honorable Sabina Chege, I'll give you a chance. Please,
thank you,
let us start with
Madam
the Honorable member for Buri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I like to support this bill because, Madam Speaker, payment of tax is everybody's obligation in this country, and because we finance our activities through the tax that is paid, there is all importance to ensure that we have an effective, efficient system of tax collection and the entire tax administration. Madam Speaker, this bill, just like it has been articulated by the mover, a tax invoice, in many cases, is required to have legal and compliance standards when matters of tax reporting is concerned. And that's what Clause 2 is seeking or trying to clarify. Madam Speaker, I once received an invoice of payment of tax, but don't contain references or even the office that this invoice emanated from. I was left to go to KLA, and for 3 days, I could not trace the origin of this invoice. Madam Speaker, this bill addresses that requirement that we need to have an electronic tax invoice that clarifies the content, including the details of the payer, where it is coming from, the information of the transaction, and even sometimes on e-signatures of where that bill that invoice has originated from. Madam Speaker, this bill is very important because it's going to make it easier for the taxpayers to understand what is contained and what is it that they are paying and for what period. Madam Speaker, Clause 2 addresses the issue of amnesty. Madam Speaker, why do we need tax amnesty? Madam Speaker, we know there's hard times. There is natural calamities that can cause one not to pay tax. There is even what we call transition of business from one to the other, relocations, etc. In many cases, you find that the taxpayer is not to meet the tax obligations in good time. And for this reason, Madam Speaker, it is very important that the tax procedure is able to address the inconveniences that are caused in terms of payment of their taxes. Madam Speaker, we have seen so many people who have, even for whatever reason, are not able to pay tax because of sickness or even injury. And amnesty is very important. And therefore, I agree that an extension of this amnesty is very valid, it's very important, and you need to support. There is the element of tax relief. Madam Speaker, you find in many cases there is conflict or doubt or even difficulties in the tax recovery. One complication that I have come across, Madam Speaker, is the issue of disability of the taxpayer, death, where you find somebody who has been running a business or even employed, passes on, and he has left tax liabilities. And he or she is not able to pay that because, the inheritance are not able to pay that tax. So because of that, there is need to have a tax relief framework that will enable such cases to be looked at and to enable either total forgiveness on paying of tax or the tax relief is granted according to a legal framework. Madam Speaker, the 10% penalty of failure to limit tax, to me, I think it is very important. Madam Speaker, this bill addresses the cost-effective collection of taxes, Madam Speaker. There are in many cases, Madam Speaker, you find we are not able to be where everybody is. And this bill tends now to synchronize all the electronic document into one system together with the iTax for the purpose of submission of electronic document. I think everybody is going online. Madam Speaker, I went to South Africa and I bought a few items, and when I reached at the airport, I went to launch tax refund. And they were asking so many questions. I think in Kenya here we need to have that kind of, and I think this is what this bill is addressing. Because strictly speaking, what everybody is looking at is how can we collect tax with ease? How Kenyans will be able to understand the methods and requirement of any tax that they are paying. So this bill, Madam Speaker, is really coming handy. Madam Speaker, we find that there are some situations where we need to address the issue of how do you period that is required for computation of tax liabilities. I've seen the Saturdays and Sundays and public holidays, yes, but I think I'll ask the mover to also look at a situation where somebody is disposed of because of sickness or injury. Madam Speaker, this is not addressed because that time that person is disabled from engaging into meaningful activities or to do certain things, that time and that person can prove that he was not able to do his activities. I think this time needs also to be included there, not only the Saturdays and Sunday. Madam Speaker, I was given a tax liability of something that I did not cause. I ran a company, and instead of this putting the payment on the company's account, they put it in my account as using my PIN. They did not use the company's PIN. I didn't know until when I went for tax compliance. I was told I owe Kenya Revenue Authority 880,000 in terms of penalties and delayed payments. Madam Speaker, this bill is addressing that. I was a self-employed person, and it took a lot of time for me to convince these people that I did not do it intentionally. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I say this bill is coming the right time because tax payment is very crucial in our economy. We don't need to make things difficult. We need to simplify for everybody to understand, and we need the public education on the ways taxes are paid in this country. It is only the educated, like Dr. Makali, who understands this. We need to get this information to the village. And once people discover that paying tax is easy, it will not be difficult for them now to start even understanding the payment and the importance of tax. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support.
Thank you very much, Honorable.